Hi, and welcome to Financial Minds Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Jaime Agostino. As you know, on this podcast, we're joined by financial industry experts to talk about topics, trends, and themes that credit union professionals need to know about. We're continuing the conversation on cybersecurity in honor of Cybersecurity Month. Joining me today is John Cuneo, Vizo Financial's VP of Information Security. John, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So I don't know. Last week, I spoke with William Wetherill from DefenseStorm. We
Yes,
had a great conversation. I'm not sure if you caught that episode or
I
not.
did. I did. It was
Awesome.
excellent. It was
One,
awesome stuff. Like really good. I mean, he touched base on a lot of good topics, and the one that, like the one that I really touched near and dear to my heart was the one about reporting phishing and having a more open communication around phishing. Even if like someone, a staff member would click something, you have to have an open dialogue, right? To
yeah.
to be able to make sure if there anything happens that you can contain it as quickly as possible. But that comes to culture, right? So culture has to be there to allow for that openness and that open conversation
Yeah.
between all the staff members and then whoever's in charge of cybersecurity in your organization. So I thought it was a great podcast. He gave a lot of good information.
Yeah. I really enjoyed having him on. I actually look forward to having him on again. So,
Oh, nice. Awesome.
all right. Well, Vizo Financial for our audience. Vizo Financial actually partners with DefenseStorm. So, John, can you tell or share some information about that partnership and how they're helping financial institutions?
Yeah, so one of the big gaps that we see a lot in credit union world and even internally at times is how do you know? Like how do you know what's happening on your network? And what's happening on your network and how do you when something's happening, how do you find out something's happening? And DefenseStorm provides that services, right? So they take all logs and ingest it into a SIM, a security events monitoring system, and they have a team there that watches. They work with you to specialize triggers and rules that when something happens on your network, they're like, this is a might be a problem. Let's call, and they give you a call, and um, then you get to investigate. So it really helps let people in my area sleep a little bit better at night. That you have some help monitoring the network because you can't be up 24/7 always monitoring, right? And they supplement the team there. They supplement the IT team um, with different troubleshooting skills, and they actually we integrate our antivirus into that. We have all our logs from our services going into it, and they get to watch and monitor a lot of things, including some of our what we would call east to west traffic, which means north to south is traffic coming into your network and going out of your network, right? So the east to west is like one computer talking to another computer. So it allows all that type of communication to be monitored and all the logs to be seen. And then we can take that and have a good picture of what our network looks like and watch for security events and then it helps supplement the incident response if there was an incident and it gives us the pieces of the puzzle to plug in what happened and when it happened, right? So excellent team. I know they have a lot more services than that. They have fraud services which they're really working on, but they're so great. They're knowledgeable. They're experts, and they really treat us well. I'm a huge advocate of DefenseStorm. Really enjoy working with them and you know, just seeing and learning from them as well.
Wonderful. Well, William and I also, we spoke about CISA's key action initiatives for their Cybersecurity Awareness Month, which included use strong passwords, turn on MFA, recognize and report phishing, and then update software. Do
Yes,
you agree with these top four initiatives? Are there any
absolutely.
additional ones you'd like to add?
Well, I mean, William, I love the line he said that they're really concentrating on the things that are being utilized against us, right? It was a very similar line to that they're really concentrating on what's being used against us and where we probably have some weaknesses because, I mean, passwords. I mean, it's we've been living with passwords since I can remember, right? So it's been a long time. We get password tired or fatigued. So it's hard to come up with a new password all the time. I agree with him on we prefer passphrases. We train on passphrases. So we rather you put a sentence together and then condense it and jumble it up a little bit, but then it's known to you and only to you. So we prefer that over a password because it just seems to be able to you can make it stronger and longer and still remember it, right? So, but I do agree with all of them. MFA is super important in this day and age, especially in the financial sector, where you're being targeted, day in and day out. No matter what asset size you're being targeted, right? Because they're getting mass text messaging or smishing. Because I think you guys even talked about all the ings that so they're getting smishing, but they're doing it by groups. So like, they'll take a group of numbers and a certain area code, and then just mass text it out. You may not be paying attention. It might say, credit union A versus credit union B. It may even say bank A versus, a credit union,
Mhm.
and someone's clicking on it because they panic, right? So if you have that MFA built in there, you can at least slow it down a little bit, and then hopefully, alarm bells will go off. And then, of course, recognizing and reporting phishing we already talked about, and then updates. Software updates is very key. I mean, we see that every day. Like we see that every day. To add anything else, I would say the only thing from an organizational standpoint, especially from a credit union standpoint, is be prepared for incident response.
Yeah.
It's really key to be prepared, to at least run through some type of exercises. I think we have one coming up very shortly. So where you can walk through some steps, you can throw out a scenario, what would we do? And when it happens, you're still going to have that sense of panic and you're going to have that sense, but at least you can say, okay, we walked through this. This is what I need to do. This is, what steps I need to take. This is who I need to contact. And this is who's in charge of this, of this incident. And it allows you to get through that. So the only thing I would add to those four was, you know, test your incident response plan, test your business continuity plan. Um, it really helps when you do get into a spot and you need to spin it up real quick.
Yeah. Based on these four factors, do you see credit unions being impacted in these areas? Like, are you seeing credit unions impacted because they don't have strong passwords or they're not turning on MFA?
Yes, they are. Absolutely. The MFA part of it probably more than the passwords because I think we've
Okay.
all gotten around to where we have minimum standards of passwords. It's been a key thing. But NIST is adjusting those what they call common practices or best practices, but we still haven't gotten away from them. But we also understand what a strong password is. It's got to be 8 to 12 characters long. It has to have uppercase, lowercase. So I think we're seeing that impact, but it's more on the end user, the member,
Yeah.
making sure that they implement good, strong passwords is tough because how do you monitor that without knowing, right? So because password's supposed to be something secret to you. But you try to put some controls into place that says, okay, this is too simple, or this is, if you put the word password in, you try to put those controls in place as much as possible, but there's always easy ways around it, right? Um, Turning on MFA will be key. Any MFA is better than no MFA. I prefer the software apps. It seems to be more convenient to the end user, and that's the key. Like Will said last week, William said last week that when we throw controls up, and if they're too complicated, the end user will try to get around it some way, right? So I think the software apps seem to be the easiest. It's convincing them to put it on their phone and use it, right? But they seem to be easy, especially the ones that you can push to, and all you have to say, yes, this is me, or no, that's not me. So those are really cool, key part. I think that would be so impactful to a credit union to implement that. And it can be very impactful if you don't have it in place because you can get caught up with a lot of fraud because there's a lot of scams going around, and AI is just making it way worse, right? So it's a very difficult world that we live in to try to protect our members' assets and their information.
Yeah. Well, maybe I hang out with you too much, but I'm thinking strong passwords and MFA, they seem like normal everyday needs.
Yeah.
So in your opinion, why do you think people, maybe consumers, maybe staff, they're not utilizing these?
They feel it's inconvenient. That's the thing, Inconvenience is probably it. Educating educating them is very difficult. because we have all live busy lives. I think William even said they come to a bank to do a financial transaction. They're not thinking security. And it's our job to try to get them to think security.
Mhm.
And they're seeing, oh, this is going to add an extra step. But if they would see the benefit of it, which there's lots of use cases out there that shows benefits of just putting a stronger extra 2 digits onto your password can add years to cracking time. Putting MFA can slow things down, can put a roadblock in. But it's not foolproof. Nothing's silver. There's no silver bullet with all this, but it at least slows things down. It throws roadblocks in, and they say, okay, I can find an easier target. And I think that's key is educating the members that um, this will protect you, protect your assets that you have with us, and then it will allow you to be less of a target, right? And that's the key is to try to be less of a target. Very similar to if you if you're in the woods and you're with somebody, the old saying was if you get attacked by a bear, you just got to be faster than the other person that's with you, right? So same thing. You want to be the more robust roadblock and allow some, let them move on to someone else, right?
Yeah.
And I hate anyone to be a victim of it, but you need to protect yourself. You got to do what you have, what you can, that's in your control. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as you said, the financial sector, it's a prime target for cybersecurity threats.
it is.
So my question would be, how can credit unions combat then the fraud and the scams on the credit union, but also their members?
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things. One of them is what we just talked about, right?
Hmm.
Make it harder for them to crack you. Um, Educate the scams that are out there. Like there's ones out there now that are talking targeting grandparents, saying like and they'll be calling and it sounds like your grandchild's on the phone and it's an AI generated recording saying, "Hey, I just I'm traveling. I just got myself in trouble. Can you please send me a $500, $1,000, please, right?" And a lot of times we panic that, we don't want a child or a young person to go through. So we initially think, okay, I'm going to help them out, right? And I got to get them out of this situation. When in reality, it's a scammer on the other end that somehow got put the pieces of the puzzle together, got enough of a clip of probably either through a voicemail or something or TikTok video of the voice and generated an AI recording. We're
Hmm.
seeing that with CEOs and ransomware attacks now, right? So like the AI is making it more difficult. So we have to be aware and educate and post. These are the scams and the frauds that are out there. And this is the techniques they're using. That's the key part is right. These are the techniques that are using. If you see this technique, pause. I think William even mentioned then take the time to find a known phone number or go
Right.
somehow connect to support right away and say, is this really you?
Yeah.
And in this case, if it's like the grandparent scenario, you want to call mom and dad and say, hey, is Johnny really um, here, wherever that would be, and has he contacted you about being in trouble? And then you guys can piece the puzzle together. I think the other key part of it is fraud monitoring,
Hmm.
some type of anomaly monitoring in the back end. Different systems are out there can do that for you, but to basically understand the behavior of your member, that's a key piece of the puzzle here to cut down fraud and scams. Um, and then be available. Be available. And so if it happens on a weekend, if I'm a member, how do I contact you? And is that information available to me? So I know who to contact because I'm going to be sitting there panicking and have to wait till Monday. I don't want to wait till Monday morning. I want to get in touch
Right.
with somebody, or at least I want to get it on somebody's radar. So I think that's going to be more important going forward is how do your members reach out to you if something happens, and how do they reach out to you if something happens when you're not open?
Yeah.
Um, and I don't have the quick and easy answer to that, but I think it's something that we need to think about in the financial world.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And with payments going soon here, 7 days a week,
Yeah,
24/7, I mean, that's going to become even more of an obstacle. You're right.
yeah,
Um,
because I see if I see $5,000, dollars or more, well, I mean, I'm sure there's people with a lot more, but I mean, even if I see $500 going out, I'm going to panic and I'm going to be like, I need to get in touch with my institution. How do I do that? Like,
Yeah.
and it's a reputational issue for you as well. It's a
Mhm.
reputational risk, that they can't get in touch with you in a timely manner. I think it's just something really that should be put on the radar and put out there.
Yeah. Well, based on working with you before, so risk assessments can be a valuable tool
Mhm.
to credit unions. Can you explain the benefits?
Sure. I mean, the benefits basically is you understand what risk you are facing. It's really a part of 748 from a credit union perspective. 748 says you have to conduct an annual risk assessment and look at current, and that's the key, current risk. But you also try to understand what's in the future. Like what could I be seeing? Um, did anyone see AI coming on like it is now? Probably some people did when they sat down and saw ChatGPT launched in that famous November month, where, and then all of a sudden how it, spun up with so many subscribers so quickly. Some people probably added it right away. Others probably didn't add it till a year later, right? So it's to be able to sit down, evaluate your risk, and then try to understand what possibly is coming down the future. And it's across the board. I mean, we talk a lot about cybersecurity because cybersecurity is very important. We have so much information. We have to protect we have to protect people's assets. And so but there's other risk out there, reputational risk. There's financial risk. All of that should be assessed. Go through the process, understand what controls you have in place to try to mitigate those risks as much as possible, identify some gaps, and that's the part here. The next part here, the next step to that is what do you do with those gaps? Sometimes you're going to have to accept them because there's nothing you can do. But if you can close those gaps by adding some additional controls or changing a few steps, then you try to close those gaps. And that's the key part of all risk assessments is to see that there's some action after it, not just perform it and checking a box and saying you're compliant, but to close gaps, identify gaps and close it. And that just there's three benefits to it, right? Or two to three benefits of it. It protects your members, it protects your staff, and it protects your overall reputation of the credit union. So there is three benefits. Huh? I just made myself have three benefits. That's great. I love it. But I'm sorry. I amuse myself sometimes. But yes, I think risk assessments are very important. They are required annually. I think it should be done on a continuous basis. Vendor risk assessment is very key. So, like, you can have your holistic risk assessment, but you have to have individual. So, any project you're having, you should have some risk assessments, close any gaps there that you may find, and identify any issues that you may be running into. So there's so much benefit to risk assessment. I know it's a key term when you ask questions to some cyber, what does your risk assessment say? And it causes a lot of eye roll, but it's the reason why we say, what does your risk assessment say is because it will identify the gaps you have. And then from those gaps, you can protect yourself a lot more and then protect your membership.
Mhm. Absolutely. Any final thoughts for our listeners today?
I just think, as we said earlier, um, those four CISA things are great. I would add to the incident response, do a tabletop. Make sure you expand it outside of just your management team or make sure you're including your operational team, make sure you're including your frontline. Um, those that are answering the phone calls, those that are taking in transactions at the line. Make sure we're including all of them in that incident response training. It doesn't have to be all done in one big one. You can do group ones, and do ongoing training around that. And security awareness training is very key. I don't like to sit down and do the hour thing. Small snippets of videos or conversation. Throw out a question, have some feedback in a staff meeting or something like that. That would be excellent. Uh, Different non-traditional ways of educating your staff on the things that they're seeing. Make sure they're aware of scams, so that if they run into a member that is being affected by something, they say, "Oh, I know what that is, and I can help you," and then be available. Just be available for your membership.
All right. Well, I feel like that with that, should really kind of say Vizo Financial is having a tabletop exercise here in November. There's still room to register, so you can check that out on Vizo Financial's website. I don't know the date right off the top of my head, but that is coming up here in the first 2 weeks, I think, of November. So I felt like I should say that, John. You were talking about
Yes,
training. It's a
absolutely.
great testing opportunity for the credit union.
It is. It's a great opportunity. Mark does a
Uh,
great job.
Yes, he does. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And this episode of Financial Minds is brought to us by DefenseStorm. If you'd like to learn more about DefenseStorm, please visit our website at www.vfccu.org or reach out to a corporate account manager at accountmanagers@vfccu.org. As always, thanks for listening and make it a great day.